It's no secret that David Lynch is my biggest inspiration. In fact, he's just one of my favorite people. Granted, I've never met the guy, but he's sort of like the father I never had, yet he knows nothing of my existence. Anyway, today is David's 75th birthday, so I thought I would take the opportunity to talk about why I love him and his movies so very, very much. Now, if you're into cinema or art in general, you've probably heard some conflicting things about Lynch. I know a lot of people who have a love-hate relationship with his work, which I understand. His films can be confusing, disturbing, meandering. They take some dissecting to fully grasp, but if you keep with it, I found that his films offer some of the most rewarding experiences a moviegoer can have. I've spent the last several years fully immersed in the world of Lynch, so I want to take you on my journey of transcendence, if you will. I began as a young and naive cinephile, but have since become something of a missionary, spreading the word and teachings of David Keith Lynch. Let's start at the beginning. I find myself extremely fortunate to have my first exposure to Lynch be his cinematic debut, Eraserhead. I've talked about it a little bit before on this channel, and I'm certain this won't be the last time I talk about Eraserhead, but I didn't really like it on my first viewing. I saw it in film school towards the end of 2014, not as a required screening, but I didn't have very many friends at the time, so I would go to just about every screening they had each weekend, and somehow I found myself in this one knowing nothing about the movie or the filmmaker. Upon retrospection, probably the best way to be introduced to Lynch. However, and this is one of my biggest regrets, I fell asleep, like right at the beginning, and I woke up feeling like I was in a fever dream myself. So yeah, I kind of just dismissed it. I mean, it was definitely frightening, but it was also a really good nap. But we'll get back to Eraserhead. A few months after leaving film school and moving to Pittsburgh, Twin Peaks was added to Netflix. Honestly, I can't remember why it caught my attention, but for whatever reason, Mikey and I decided to watch it, and we were immediately hooked. We couldn't get enough. The mystery, the charm, the cherry fucking pie. We breezed through the first season in a few nights and dove right into season 2, sitting on the edge of our couch, fully immersed in the investigation. Of course, anyone who's watched the show knows that the main mystery is wrapped up a little bit, abruptly, and the quality takes a steep dive. If we watched the first 16 or 17 episodes in like the matter of a week, it probably took us a few months to get through the second half of season 2. So at this point, I'm not a Lynch fanatic, but I definitely appreciate and admire what he's trying to do. Enter Mulholland Drive. My old boss on Mindhunter introduced me to this one after discovering my love of Peaks, and at this point, I had heard a little bit about it and kind of knew what to expect. A compelling neo-noir that poses more questions than it answers. I was going through a real noir kick at the time, like I was watching The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon on repeat, so I was pretty excited about this one. I remember watching it alone on a Friday morning, paying meticulous attention to not miss any crucial detail that would affect my understanding of the plot. Needless to say, it was a fruitless endeavor. But this one got me, like right away. I couldn't have told you what I witnessed in the final 30 to 45 minutes of the movie, but I felt it. This was maybe the first time I understood what people meant when they said that some movies were more of like an experience than anything else. So I watched it again, and again, and then I went out and bought the Criterion Blu-ray and devoured all of the supplemental content. Honestly, I don't think I had been so enraptured by a movie since I saw The Dark Knight when I was 12. And still, to this day, it remains one of my favorite movies of all time. Then I went back to Eraserhead. I realized that I hadn't been fair to it, so I went out and bought the Criterion of that too, and this time, I actually watched it. I experienced it. Again, I wasn't totally sure what I had seen, but I knew what it made me feel, and at this point, that's all I wanted from a Lynch film. But was I hooked yet? Not quite. Summer 2016, my local art house theater is showing Twin Peaks Firewalk with me for only about a week, and as a big fan of the show, I knew I had to check it out. And I'm really glad I did, because even then, I knew that it was very likely the only opportunity I would ever get to see a David Lynch movie on the big screen for the first time. And, this one threw me for a loop. Much like the original audiences in 1992, I felt duped. It wasn't the Twin Peaks I was expecting, and it certainly wasn't the Twin Peaks that I wanted. Gone was the cherry pie, the innocence of Special Agent Dale Cooper, the soapy quality that I felt so nostalgic for from the show's original run. What I got was a bizarre and terrifying exploration into the rapid degradation of a tortured young woman, and by the end of it, I just felt sick. But it taught me two things about David Lynch. Never expect anything from him because he will not deliver. And more importantly, you gotta let his movies sit with you for a little bit before you jump to judgments. But I'll get back to that. Blue Velvet was my next one, and the first one that I feel like I got. I mean, it is sort of his most straightforward movie, with the exception of the straight story, I guess. So in that sense, it was also something of a disappointment. I don't know, I guess I just expected more. I liked it. I mean, I didn't love it, but I definitely liked it. And it was enough to finally light my fire to seek out the rest of his movies. Lost Highway felt like Lynch at his most Lynchian. It's funny and scary and sexy, and that soundtrack is just so damn good. And then I got this DVD of the straight story and cried like a baby. I mean, what is there not to like about this one? A David Lynch Disney movie? Beautiful. Wild at Heart was enjoyable. It remains one of my least favorite of his, but that's not to say that it's not great, and it's really fun to see so many familiar faces from Twin Peaks show up. Also, that one scene with Laura Dern and Willem Dafoe is maybe the most disturbing thing he's ever put to film. I can't remember if I saw The Elephant Man or Dune after that, but both of those are tons of fun. I don't know if there's a lot of hate for Dune outside of David's own distaste for it, but I thought it was super intriguing, and as far as campy sci-fi movies go, it's pretty solid. Of course, The Elephant Man is beautiful and moving, and it's really cool to see how talented he was at such a young age. And finally, Inland Empire. I intentionally put this one off for so long because I had heard how utterly incomprehensible it was, that he had finally gone too far and would never make another movie again. Also, I just couldn't find it anywhere. I finally had to order this Japanese Blu-ray, and I watched it as soon as it arrived. It's a daunting watch. It's overwhelming in a way, but I loved it. I'm glad that I watched it last because I certainly knew what I was getting myself into, but it's still completely surprising. Laura Dern is incredible in it, and the actual production of the movie is an inspiration to any aspiring filmmaker. So that whole journey took me about 5 years from start to finish. I've since gone back and rewatched all of his movies multiple times, including all 3 seasons of Twin Peaks, his short films, I've read his biography, I've taken his masterclass, I watch his weather report every day. I've drank the Kool-Aid is what I'm trying to say here. The only thing I haven't done is transcendental meditation, and the only reason I haven't done it is because there's not a teacher here in Pittsburgh, and he says that you need to learn the technique in person. So maybe someday David can teach me one-on-one. And while I tend to go through phases of obsession with different filmmakers or artists, my infatuation with Lynch has yet to wane. But here's the thing. Most of his movies aren't my favorite movies. Firewalk with Me and Mulholland Drive certainly are, and Twin Peaks is easily my favorite show, but most of his other movies I just really admire, and his artistic process in general. He lives his life and makes his art according to his own rules and compromises for no one. Yet, when it comes to his filmmaking process, he's a true collaborator. And while his actors have often described themselves as being various paintbrushes for his vision, they're still included in that process. It's an exploration, and you can see that, feel that in the final film. But like I said, I understand why some of my friends or acquaintances on the internet aren't as big of a fan as I am. His movies aren't easy to watch and are oftentimes not very enjoyable. But they stick with you. They've got a knack for getting under your skin or festering in your mind for days or weeks after you watch them. It's why I went back to Eraserhead after all those years. It's why it took me several viewings to fully appreciate the artistry behind Lost Highway or Blue Velvet. At a glance, they can seem absurd or shocking for no real purpose. But if you go back with an open mind and just let the film take you on its journey, you'll see that all of the answers are there, even if you don't understand them. David doesn't make things that are confusing just for the hell of it. There's an intention to every single decision that he's made. And if you look back at his full filmography from start to finish, you can really see his progression as a filmmaker and how each film leads to the next, ending in maybe the most damning critique of Hollywood I've ever seen. So if you've only seen a couple of his movies and maybe didn't like them, I implore you to try again. I'm certain you'll find something in there that you didn't see before. Each time I watch one of his movies, I like it more than I did previously, and at this point, that's saying something. There are very few filmmakers who are so consistent in tone and style from one movie to the next. And I'm not trying to say that all of his movies are the same, because they are absolutely not. Sure, he tackles similar themes from time to time, but what makes him all so Lynchian is that he's always true to himself. That's why I hate when people describe things as being Lynchian. No one can be Lynchian except for Lynch. He's just a pure artist, and I think there's a lot to be learned from that. I guess I could ramble on about him and his movies until the sun goes down, but needless to say, I just really like the guy. With that, happy birthday, David. And to everyone, have a great day.